Yeah, they're identical, but the gaps. What do you do during those 10-minute breaks?
Welcome to Prism of Torah with Rabbi Esav Aaron Prisman, engaging Divrei Torah, packed with stories and practical insights. Find us wherever you get your podcasts or at prismoftorah.org.
Shalom Avracha, may this Torah be l'refuah shlema to my uncle Tzvi Shmuel ben Sar b'sof Shachol Yisrael, who is in great need of a yeshua. I would like to share with you a phenomenal idea, both question and answer, brought down by the Tiferes Shimshon, and it goes like this. If we look carefully, we all know Esav was a very wicked person. A person so wicked and evil that he ended up, based on the Gemara in Bava Basra, he eventually committed 5 of the major sins in a single day, as it is hinted in the words V'hu ayef v'yageh. However, when the Torah has a couple words to describe who Esav is, it says Vahi Esav ish yodeh tzayid ish sadeh. That is the way the Torah is deciding to define Esav. Esav was a man of the field. If you look at Rashi and also other Mefarshim, they explain he was wasting his time. He was not being productive. He was idle, hunting for sport. That's what they did in those days. Whoever wanted to waste time, they went to hunt. Wasting time. That's it. And the question begs itself, that's it? That's his defining characteristic? Shouldn't the Torah focus on his wickedness, his terrible character that actually led to those 5 terrible sins? Why are we emphasizing the idea of wasting time instead? Rav Pinkus explains in Tiferes Shimshon that this is actually what defines a person. The real root of a person, what defines a person, is what he does with his free time. Everything else is a ripple effect from that. Everything flows from that. And hence the Torah dafka decided to tell you what the root of the cause is. By Esav, the root of the cause is that he is wasting his time. As Chazal teach us, a person is born like a wild donkey. As it says in Eov, Ayil pere adam yivaled, which means a wild donkey is born a man. The default of a man is he has this natural tendency to be like an animal, to go with his instincts of just enjoying life, just chilling out, as they say. These are the basic instincts we have, and hence, without pursuit of driving ourselves to spirituality, a person stays on that level. You can just coast through life and just chill out, and you're going to eventually deteriorate. That is what happened over here. Esav, every time he had free time, he just went to the field with his sport of trying to catch animals, and that was his whole essence. And because that was the root cause, that eventually made him be like an animal, just deteriorate, and eventually get to the level of doing all those bad sins. Which, by the way, now we can see the contrast. It's perfect. As opposed to Yaakov Avinu, who, how does the Torah decide to describe him? Despite the fact that he was the Bechir of the Avos, the top of the top, perhaps because he had also attributes of Avram, of Chesed, and also attributes of Yitzchak, of Gvura. He was in the middle Tiferes, which is also representing of Emes and the Torah. He was yoshev ohalim, which represents learning Torah in his tent, or perhaps metaphorically representing the idea of enduring his free time, always running after spirituality. Despite the fact that we know Yaakov Avinu also worked a lot, worked many years for Leah and Rachel. However, during his free time, he was yoshev ohalim, running after spirituality and learning Torah. I would like to connect this to what a lot say at the end of the day of learning, or during a siyum, that we compare ourselves, how lucky we are that we're yoshvei beis hamidrash. We get to learn in the beis hamidrash as opposed to people that are yoshvei kranos. Yoshvei kranos literally is translated to those people sitting on corners. The standard understanding is, yes, it's representing the idea of people wasting time, going to a street corner, always playing card games, and just meaningless chatter, talking about shtuyot. But perhaps there's a deeper meaning that I would like to suggest about this idea of yoshvei kranos, which, by the way, is brought down in the Gemara in Brachos, in Daf Kaf Ches Amud Beis, that we thank Hashem that we are yoshvei beis hamidrash and not yoshvei kranos. Rashi over there already says, who are these people that are yoshvei kranos? That literally translates to people sitting in the corners. Those are, says Rashi, amei haaretz, people that are people of this world, just wasting their time occupied with idle chatter. I would like to suggest, why are they called people of corners? Because a corner represents you're not doing the mainstream of what you're supposed to do in life. You're not in the main street. You're just in the corner. You're wasting your time. That is not to say that people don't need to just unwind and go on vacations here and there. Yes, but throughout your whole life, every time you have a minute, every time you have a break, what are you going to do with your free time? Are you just waste it on chilling out? Or are you going to have productive conversations, seeing how you can do chesed, working on your midot? Is it all about spirituality? Or is it all about wasting your time and being like the instincts of an animal? What you do in the free time is really what defines you. And that was the difference between Esav and Yaakov. And that's why it's very fitting that the Torah defines Esav as being ish sadeh, a man of the field, just going out and doing the sport of latzud, as opposed to Yaakov, who was yoshev ohalim. A person can be working the whole day because he needs to do so for parnasa, to support his family. However, when he has 20 minutes to himself, early in the morning or late at night, what does he do with that time? Of course, after he was with his family, etc., he still has a couple of minutes. What does he do with that time? Does he take it and learn a bit every day? Does he take it and think and do cheshbon nefesh, how he's going to grow every day? And that perhaps is exactly what the Gemara in Brachos, Daf Hei Amud Beis, says. Whether one does much or little, echad marbe ve'echad mamit, what matters is that his heart is directed towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'ikar shelibo yeh mechuvan l'shamayim. And that is the idea of what are you doing with your free time, even if it's not a lot. But that is going to define who you really are. I'd like to end with a short story that one of my Rabbeim, Rav Kamenetsky, told us, the whole shiur. And he said, he didn't want to say Lashon Hara, Chas v'Shalom, so he said, many years ago in this shiur, there were two people. They were both very sharp, both knew how to learn very, very well. He said, let's call them Chaim and David. They entered the yeshiva at the same time, came from a very similar background, same abilities, attended every seder in the yeshiva. However, there ended up being a big difference when they completed their years in yeshiva and went on to build a family. And a lot of people asked, or he asked himself, how did this happen? And then he looked into each one's life and he saw there was a major difference. It might not have been so many minutes every day, but there was a major difference. Between Shachris and Seder, there's 10 minutes. What did Chaim do? He pulled out a Tehillim or helped someone with yesterday's Gemara. David read the news in the newspaper. Lunch break, another 20 minutes. Chaim reviewed Mishnayos or did an act of chesed. And David just talked on the phone. And so on and so on. Rav Kamenetsky looked at us and smiled. He said, you should know. Look at people's 10-minute breaks. It could be that in the mandatory time of learning, they're identical, but the gaps. What do you do during those 10-minute breaks? Chaim ran towards kedusha, as opposed to David, he ran from effort. And the idea of Kamenetsky told us is, free time doesn't only reveal who you are, it actually creates who you become. Yiratzon will take this idea and become a yoshev ohalim, running after spirituality in our free time, which will not only reveal who we are, but also help us grow and become tzaddikim like Yaakov Avinu. Have a good Shabbos.
This concludes another episode of The Prism of Torah. Thank you for tuning in today. We hope you enjoyed it and learned something valuable. If you did, please subscribe to the podcast and give a 5-star rating. You can also find this podcast wherever you get your podcasts or our own website, prismoftorah.com, where we have a full archive of all our past episodes. We would like to thank Yona Vefa for the recording equipment and Eli Podcast Productions for handling all our post-podcast productions. Join us next week for another enlightening conversation on The Prism of Torah.